We're going to talk about a common phenomenon today that happens to people who, for one reason or another, crash after they are put on steroids. Steroids, especially common names like hydrocortisone, prednisone, trade names such as Lidex and other forms, sodium retro packs, are commonly used in medical conditions to combat inflammation, and especially if you have a uh, histamine released at the body's allergic state, when you have a strained muscles or you have a pain, injections of corticosteroids are usually given by the physician to help relieve the pain on a symptomatic basis because it does reduce inflammation. It does work in that sense, and many people find good relief. And in the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 decades, there's also been a variety of different forms of steroids that has been advanced from short-acting to medium to long-acting. And so if you have a back pain or you have a strained muscles or you have a sprained ankle or you have allergic reactions and you go to the urgent care and you have a rash and antihistamine doesn't work, then usually steroids is prescribed. Steroids also prescribed if you have breathing problems such as asthma or if you have a lung infection to help the body heal while the antibiotic is on board. So the use of antibiotic is what we call it, widely prevalent. And most of the time it works. And you start out with a pretty high dose, usually for a short term, and then maybe 20, 40, 50 milligrams, and then slowly kind of titrate down. The use of steroids is well known, and in the sports arena, it is actually banned because it enhances performance. For normal daily use, people use it quite, it's dispensed quite common. Now, you would think that something like this, which is so well received by most people, would have no problem. But in a small number of people, either acutely or afterwards, they complain that their body is never quite the same. They may get over the hump in terms of the rash, but a lot of the people may complain of fatigue, anxiety, sleeplessness, insomnia, both an inability to fall asleep, as well as waking up in the middle of the night. It's almost as if these symptoms that come from nowhere are triggered after the body is given the steroid either by injection or by oral form. And it can be, as I said, immediate or soon after or even months after. But you will find that a lot of people do complain that their body is never quite the same. And from that point on, it's almost like the body is struggling to reestablish its own homeostasis. And this journey usually takes the sufferer through many, many doctors, endocrinologists, testing of various kinds, and then ultimately would be abandoned because there's really no explanation why the body would, so to say, kind of, quote, fall apart and never be the same. And the struggle will continue for years. And this is a classic picture. Many of them, when they present themselves, would have this type of weakness, anxiety, brain fog, loss of vitality, loss of exercise capacity. The body is never quite the same. Multiple chemical sensitivities, pruritus, tinnitus. It's just that the body feels off for some reason and is never able to regain its footing. No laboratory test is positive. Usually it's always normal. And that is one of the biggest problems because when the laboratory tests are normal, the conclusion is that there's nothing wrong. And so the sufferers are kind of left as navigating on their own. And if they complain enough, then there's usually given antidepressants or sleeping pills for symptomatic treatment. But the problem never really go away. And in extreme cases, menstrual cycles in women can also be disrupted. So this is a problem. And these are what we call the orphan child medicine, where the sufferers are ultimately abandoned and there's no really help in sight. We don't know why it happened, but I see this quite often. And my feeling is that it has to do with the cortisol feedback loop. Uh, the scientific literature on this is quite rare because there's just not enough cases to warrant that type of study. But if you have an intrinsic pre-existing weakness in your adrenals where cortisol is made and is supposed to be self-regulating, but if you are kind of marginal or you already have problems subclinically in that regulation, even though laboratory numbers may be normal in terms of the cortisol, and then when you give external cortisol in big doses, especially prednisone in packs that start up at high doses, you can actually upset the system. It's almost like you have an external bolus and giving the body external cortisol. So in some people, the body adrenals may not feel a necessity to make it anymore. So when the feedback loop is offset, then the body depends on the external cortisol. Of course, the longer you stay on cortisol, the harder it is to get off. And this is oftentimes another problem. And when you get off, you can get withdrawals and you can get rebound reactions. But the concept at a higher level is that when external cortisol is given, the body may not feel a need to make its own endogenous cortisol. And when that happens, when you withdraw the external cortisol, let's say the 5 days is up, the 7 days is up, the body is supposed to kickstart itself and then to replenish. But if you have a weak adrenals and this feedback loop has kind of been dysregulated, it may not be able to self-start. So when that happens, the body becomes cortisol low subclinically, even though, interestingly, the levels by blood test may be normal. The saliva test is more important to see the diurnal rhythm because oftentimes you may not have caught it at the right time, but that's a separate issue altogether. The concept, what I'm trying to allude to here, is that the body goes into this loop where it is unable to self-regulate and self-drive itself to reset and then to rebound when the external steroids is taken away. So when this happens, the person have low cortisol on a relative basis. It may not be on an absolute basis. And the body feel more fatigued, the inflammation will come on because there's less inflammation suppression mechanism. Cortisol is the one that helps to drive sugar into the bloodstream as well for stress. So the body cannot handle stress when the cortisol is low. So there's a lot of these sequences that can happen that results in almost a very convoluted, kind of very hard to understand basket of symptoms that defies conventional medical logic. So the way to look at this situation is to kind of step back and look at the whole body. We know that the stress control mechanism ultimately rests in the adrenal glands and regulated by insulin, regulated by adrenaline, and regulated by cortisol. So, you can have this interplay of these three hormones that can cause problem to start, even if you don't have adrenal issues or cortisol imbalances. And when you throw in the cortisol and then you take it away, this can upset the web of the feedback loop. So primarily, it's very important to look at the history, try to see which of the 6 neuroendometabolic circuits that can regulate cortisol function, adrenal functions, as well as adrenaline and insulin plays into this stress regulation. So it's rather complex. There's a lot of physiology involved, but a detailed history will tell you the answer. We know that there are 6 circuits, as I said, so we find out with challenges which one is the weakest, and we try to naturally support it and give the body the resetting of the cortisol if that is a main issue, or if it is an issue where it is driven by adrenaline from the cortisol withdrawal, as the sugar can be metabolically offset because the cortisol drives increase in sugar. So when you also have people who have a sugar sensitivity, their sugar level may go down when the cortisol is withdrawn, creating reactive hypoglycemia if they already have some weakness. On top of that, if the cortisol is driving to reduce inflammation, the adrenaline level may also be high, medium, or low as a compensatory response. So that's another kind of like a wild card into the whole system.